Hello and welcome to Le Mans. It's edition 5 of After the Flag, and we're indoors because it's a bit too cold and we might get rained on outside. Although we did manage to escape rain today, and it was another victory for Marc Marquez. Coming up in the show, we discuss Marc, we discuss the Ducatis. There's a lot more coming, as well, of course, as our predictions that we made yesterday, which I'm not looking forward to. Steve Day, Simon Crafar, Matt Birt here to analyse what's happened here today. And we have to start, of course, with the world champion, Marc Marquez. Guys, it's the third win in 5 races. It's looking a bit ominous, not necessarily in the points table, which we'll bring up a bit later on. But Marc Marquez, although he was challenged in the early stages, Matt Birt, by Jack Miller and maybe at the first couple of corners by Danilo Petrucci, but once he got out front and got into his rhythm, again, another faultless performance from Marc.
Once he got ahead of Jack Miller, who, fair play to Jack, he really gave Marc some tough moments in the early stage of that race, but once he got to the front and started to build that gap, you never really felt like he was in any kind of trouble. It was a tough choice, wasn't it, for the tyres? You know, Marc went for the soft front, soft rear, which is not his preferred choice. It was so cold. A lot of dry track time on Friday for the guys. With all the rain on Saturday, it was a tough tyre choice. But yeah, Marc, once he got to the front, he controlled it absolutely brilliantly. He's looking like, for me, as good as he's looked since 2014. It's going to take something really special to beat him, because, you know, if he hadn't thrown it down the road in Austin, he'd have won the last 4 races and been over 30 points clear. It's only because he made that mistake that these guys hang on his coattails. Him and the Honda are just a dream package right now.
And well, it seems, Simon, certainly from the press conference anyway, Marc was saying that he's able to adjust his riding style to ride more like the Ducati when it matters, to protect that front tyre from overheating. He's so adaptable, he's so versatile, and yet he just manages to get the job done perfectly. And again, the qualifying so crucial for him, because he's able to challenge for first going into turn 1 immediately.
He's class, and I think Honda would be in trouble without him, you know, because to me, Ducati would have got first, second and third probably today without Marc Marquez, you know. He's absolute class. But also, if you look at the lap times he was doing, how consistent, I think you brought it up in the race, it was just exactly this, like a machine, like Lorenzo used to do, you know.
Yeah.
And it can't take anything away from him. Absolute class.
We just have to quickly point out that, I mean, he even mentioned it, that there is a naught next to the column in Austin. We have to look at it like that. He is still only 8 points going into, I mean, if there's any light at the end of the tunnel for those watching thinking, you know, this is all over already, it's not. Although the next couple of races will really tell us a tale about where everyone else is, if they can actually challenge him.
Massive couple of races, particularly for Ducati, Stephen, Andrea Dovizioso. We know Mugello and Barcelona, tracks that traditionally suit Andrea's riding style and the Ducati. Somebody's got to try and ruffle Marc Marquez up. You know, nobody at the moment can get really close enough to him. Jack tried really hard today. He was one of the riders of the day for me today, Jack Miller, but yeah, the next 2 races for me are going to make or break Ducati's World Championship. If they can't beat Marc in Mugello and Barcelona, they are in deep trouble. They're going to need a massive shovel to get themselves out of that hole.
And to answer what you were saying before about Marc changing his riding style, I took from what he said in the press conference that the engine, you can see the engine of the Hondas, he's going with the Ducati down that front straight, wasn't he? And I think he can change his riding style, where before he had to ride like this on entry to try and make up what he'd lost down the straight. Now that he doesn't have to do that, he can set the bike a little different, doesn't have to go as hard on the brakes, can carry a bit more corner speed, use the engine like they do. And when the reason I'm bringing this up is what you said, Matt, going to the next 2 races where the engine is so important, then he's going to have a better time than he did last year.
But, you know, he's raced so closely with the Ducati over these last couple of years. There's nobody better qualified than Marc Marquez to make a judgment of the strengths and weaknesses of the Ducati. He's fed all that information back to Honda, and it's almost like Honda are making their bike like a Ducati, and they've found that real grunt. Like Simon said, coming off the corner today, it was clear out of those low gear hairpins the Honda was working an absolute dream, and it puts him in that less danger zone for the corners. I mean, how many times do we see Marc have big moments on the front, crashing out on the front end? He's not in that danger zone anymore because the acceleration of the engine means that he's got that margin for error now on the brakes.
Well, last year he had to run the hard because he was having to brake so hard. Now he can run a little bit softer, or at least get away with the next like he did today.
It's 300 wins, of course, for Honda. We should mention that Premier Class victories, 47 of them have been given to them by Marc Marquez, who actually, interestingly, said he's riding the bike a bit like a Ducati. Jorge Lorenzo. Unfortunately for him, it hasn't worked out again today. Now, we should just say, still not 100% fit. Jorge will be back. It looked like, again, this weekend, there were some glimpses of maybe him returning, but ultimately on race day, it's not worked out again.
Still no top 10 on the Honda, Steve. You know, we thought he made a breakthrough going back to that standard Honda seat unit this weekend, but it looks like it's the same old problem. Like he had at the start on the Ducati, he just fatigues and tires on his upper body too quickly. He's not in a position, certainly in the braking zone, where he feels completely comfortable. His arms are just getting so tired and fatigued very early on. He put up a half-decent fight. It was nothing more than that, to be fair. And then he dropped outside the top 10. I think Simon made a great point. You know, Marc Marquez is Honda right now. Yeah, Cal Crutchlow was ninth. You know, Cal didn't have a great weekend. Lorenzo not inside the top 10. Nakagami crashed. I mean, if I was Alberto Puig and HRC, I'd be going, Mark, what do you need? I'd be rolling out a huge wheelbarrow of cash and saying, mate, we need him on a multi-year contract because he's their biggest asset by far.
There are two things I just want to add to that quickly. Cal was starting from 15th, which is probably the reason why he's finished a little bit further back. Not necessarily saying he would have been on the podium had he qualified better, and I still wouldn't rule out a Jorge Lorenzo win just yet, because the guy, when he does click it together, is fantastic.
Ruling out Jorge coming back and winning again on the Honda would be like writing off Valley on a Sunday. He's going to come back. Yeah. It's just, you know, Ducati gave up on him, didn't he? And I don't think Honda will. The rumours we heard this weekend, I think, are rubbish. They're more professional than that. And we all know what Jorge's capable of. He will get there. He will. It's just hard waiting for it, isn't it? It makes you doubt, but he'll get there.
We're going to have to stop talking about Hondas for now because we have to talk about Ducati, second, third and fourth. Dovi won that battle. So damage limitation, I suppose you could say. You could see in the press room, though, happy to be back in the Parc Fermé perhaps, but not happy with the overall performance because he can see what's going on further up the road.
No, he's getting his nose rubbed in it at the moment by Marc Marquez. I mean, I think, like you say, Steve, Andrea was happy to take 20 points. He limited the damage pretty well, but Ducati are not on the level of Marc Marquez and Honda right now. I think Andrea paid more than anybody, by the sounds of it, talking to him after the race, for that damp conditions on Saturday. We know what Andrea's like. He's a methodical worker. He likes to build up his speed throughout the weekend. Missing FP3 and FP4 seemed to really hurt Dovizioso. So on Friday, he sent the dry. Uncharacteristic for Andrea Dovizioso. Riding a bit too aggressive, not normally his smooth style. And he was burning up the rear tyre quicker, generating a lot of wheel spin. And he said that was exactly what happened to him today. 8 laps from the end, he just ran out of rear tyre. Got to say, he did a fantastic job to hold off Petrucci because Danilo, he really wanted that second place, didn't he? Andrea we know how he's such a great tactician in races. He knew that he had the advantage coming out of corners. He knew that Petrucci was much quicker on the brakes going in, but he just stage managed it brilliantly, so he just didn't give Petrucci a sniff. But yeah, he did say afterwards, we are behind Marquez, we are behind on Honda. They've got to find some speed pretty quickly before Mark stretches away.
Your analysis on Ducati, Simon, because Jack Miller, as Matt mentioned, had a great race up until the latter stages, seemed to run into a bit of trouble. And Danilo, I mean, great to have him back on the podium. He was very amusing, actually, in the press conference, and he even tipped his cap to Andrea, which I thought was nice, at the work that they've done together in the winter to get him there. So it's good to see him up there.
Danilo, start with Danilo. That was so nice to see them come into Parc Fermé. And you often see riders embrace each other and go, oh, great. But this one you could tell was really genuine, heartfelt. You know. Oh, yeah, heartfelt. Both on the podium, and they both battled each other for it. I took from what Dovi said, you know, saying that we need more speed, you need that 2/10 up your sleeve to be able to manage the race. And I know some of the press took it as speed as in horsepower, but he's meaning lap time, being able to not have to ride the whole race on the limit, probably like he had to do today, you know, going flat out. Then you can manage how to use the tyre and have enough tyre left to attack at the end, you know, and not watch Mark pull away, you know. When he passed Jack, you know, Jack came through, I think it is 10, 11, the last chicane anyway. I saw Jack running wide, like understeering, you know, and struggling grip-wise. And I think Jack will probably agree when he watches this that it was probably because of that attack, you know, so early on. He was going really fast, wasn't he? He was going great. But I think when I saw Dovi come past Jack, I thought, oh, that's it, he's going to drop off, you know, the two different styles. But I believe I saw Jack learn from Dovi and stay with him. I was really impressed. And I think, because Dovi's got so much experience riding this bike, that Jack's got to learn off him, and he can. I think Jack's learning for the future.
Yeah, I think that was one of Jack's most mature performances today. He really did hang in there. He struggled for grip because he tried to fight hard at the start and go with Marquez. He said, admitted, I did burn up a little bit of tyre. But I think there's a lot of positives for Jack to take away. I mean, you think today, he overtook Marc Marquez for the lead in a MotoGP race. Who can do that? Not many people. And he held off an onslaught from Valentino Rossi as well.
Rossi,
so there were two things that Jack did today which were absolutely awesome.
Jack from 2 years ago might have thrown that up the road in trying to stay with those guys. And we have to
and at least gone backwards once the tyres went down.
Yeah,
and I think he learnt how to do a bit of a dovey and keep it smooth today.
Ducati have got to sort it out in the next few races, though. Dovizioso said in the press conference they need speed, and that's not top speed. They haven't got a problem in that department. Just in general over the laps. We have to now go on to Yamaha. We could be here for half an hour, probably chatting over what's happened today, and I've got a few more things I want to get through. Yamaha. OK, Valentino Rossi 5th. Started 5th, finished 5th. Don't often say that about Valentino. No forward movement for him. Morbidelli was 7th. We'll have to bypass that for now because I've got too much else I want to talk about. Vinales. What a nightmare for him. And Quartararo. Now, had he not started 10th and made those mistakes, his pace was superb. He could have been on the podium, so I just want to get your guys' thoughts in general, if possible. Compact answers of Yamaha's day.
Well, for me, very, very quickly, Vinales just really, really unfortunate. I mean, like, taken out by Morbidelli on the last lap in Argentina, not his fault whatsoever. The same today, a mistake by Pecco Bagnaia wiping Maverick out. Maverick wasn't going to be fighting for the podium, let's be honest. His podium hopes were wrecked yesterday. Solid ride by Morbidelli, steady rather than spectacular. Valentino, I think, limited the damage. He didn't have the bike to go with the guys in front of him. He put up a real strong fight. Quartararo. I mean, that guy just continues to impress me. I mean, hats off. I mean, you think about it. If he hadn't have made that mistake, Steve, you're absolutely right. He'd have been right in podium contention. 5 MotoGP races for that guy, and twice now he's been the fastest man in the race. Fastest lap in the race in Qatar, fastest lap in the race today. His time is going to come. There's no doubt about it. He's not got much luck at the moment, but he's got the speed, and that's crucial.
I think if you need to save time, Matt just nailed it. That's exactly how I feel about it.
3 extra minutes then in after the flag. Fantastic. Well done.
Another glass of champagne for me then.
Don't thank him anymore. We've got some bad news coming on this way. The Quartararo thing, just quickly as well, we have to just mention, he's still not crashed on that bike. I mean, he's so quick, and under the pressure cooker of being here at home as well.
Yep. Yesterday were probably, during qualifying, were the worst conditions I think I've ever seen. Equal to the worst I've ever seen in my life for a rider to manage. I've seen deeper water, rivers across, make you crash, but this was constantly changing between a damp and wet, and you didn't know what tyres to go on, how hard to push, the surface was dark, like absolute nightmare. And this 20-year-old kid, I'm 50, kid is unbelievable not to have crashed in those conditions at his home GP, and still qualify, and to go, he'd be the fastest Yamaha rider in the last 2 races and not fall off it. He's stunning, and I can't wait for his first podium.
I want to end the show with a chat about Pol Espargaro and KTM. For me, Marc was superb at the ride of the day for Pol Espargaro and KTM. I'll finish the show with that, but first, let's have a look back and see what we predicted yesterday.
Yes, let's do that.
Le Mans. OK, this is the hardest one of the season for me in terms of predictions. The first thing I have a big problem with is knowing whether it's going to be dry or wet, and I've been told we're not allowed to do a dry or wet prediction. So I'm going to gamble on it being wet, and I keep on saying Marc Marquez to win, and I'm not winning any of these podium predictions, so I'm going to really go for something mega gamble. I'm going for Danilo Petrucci to get his first ever victory in MotoGP, Dovizioso 2nd, and Rossi 3rd.
Yeah, I've no idea what's going to happen in Le Mans with the unpredictable weather, but I'm assuming it's going to be a wet race. I'm going to go for Marc Marquez, Andrea Dovizioso and Danilo Petrucci. They've been the 3 outstanding riders the last couple of years in the rain conditions. I'm just going to throw this in there as well. If it's dry, I'm still going to go with Marquez. I'm going to go Rossi 2nd, Dovizioso 3rd. I'm hedging my bets here, so I'll take my chance in France. Let's see what happens. Cheers, guys.
My predictions for the French GP. I think it's the hardest prediction we've done this year because we don't really know how fast they are in the dry, and we don't even know if it's going to rain. So I'm just going to go with my gut and go Marc. If he stays on, he's going to win. I think it's going to be dry, so I'm going to go with Dovi second. And if it's dry in front of this French crowd, I want to see Fabio get his podium.
Can you believe it? Matt Birt. Now, I have a bit of a problem with this, I have to say, because Matt Birt said, well, we were told by Marty that we weren't allowed to do dry and wet predictions. So his dry prediction was actually wrong. But we've been told that we've got to go with the wet answers, so it means he's right.
Yep.
So by default, Matt wins.
Matt wins. He cleared fair and square, but we've all got one of those workmates, haven't we, that knows everything and loves to rub it in.
What can I say? Hey, guys, for me, it was a wet race because I was crying with laughter in the commentary box when I knew that my predictions were coming in. I mean, what can I say? The first full house of the season. Come on, guys, you've got to step up.
Yep. Hats off to Matt.
That really pains me to say it. Had it been wet, it could have been a different case. I have to just say, shout out for you, Quattararo, as well, because had it have gone differently, maybe he could have... Anyway, Matt wins. Let's finish off with Pol Espargaro. What a fantastic effort. He said a couple of days ago that if they were to finish 7th or 8th in the race within 10 seconds of the leaders, he'd be over the moon. That would feel like a win for them. He's done better than that. He's finished in 6th place today. I think only 5 or 6 seconds away. Outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's flipping a coin to decide between Fabio Quattararo and Pol Espargaro, who was the star of the day today. I think Pol probably just shades it. I mean, a first dry top 6, a genuine top 6 result in dry conditions for KTM is absolutely phenomenal. KTM know that every time Pol Espargaro goes out on the track, he is giving nothing less than 100%. He's a fighter, he's a charger, he's fully committed to that project. It's a great boost for the factory. You know, they've had tough times. The Zarco thing hasn't quite worked out so far, but Pol Espargaro today rode like an absolute demon, a true hero. Hopefully, that's a bit of a breakthrough for KTM. You know, they've turned up a lot of new parts this weekend. The carbon fibre swing arm clearly worked. Yeah. That helped, but it's just fantastic to see a new manufacturer and a new rider, or not a new rider, but a different face right at the sharp end.
I'm super happy for Pol, but also I'm super happy for KTM because and the sport, because today, if it wasn't for Marc, it would have been a Ducati, whitewash, wouldn't it? You know, Marc puts the Honda there, but we only had 2 manufacturers in the race. Yamaha should have been there, hopefully Quattararo, but Yamaha weren't there today, and we need another manufacturer in there. From my point of view, I want to see all 4 of them battling, you know, and to see the KTM right at the end of the race, was it 5 seconds something, in the big shot, the long shot, you can see all the bikes coming. He's still in the same frame. Yeah. I'm like, that is a huge boost. Spoke to Michael Leitner after the race, looked at Pol's bike. He did have that brand new swing arm in there, carbon fibre thing. Fingers crossed it's the start of a...
Well, look, guys, we could talk for another 20 minutes, but we've run out of time here in After the Flag. We haven't even mentioned Alex Rins, and that's really because it just has not been his weekend. He started 19th and really didn't make any headway. Maybe those few points he picked up, though, might come in handy towards the end of the season. Thanks for joining us this weekend in France. It's been fun. We're looking forward, though, to Mugello now in the Tuscan Hills, and hopefully the weather is a bit warmer than it has been here. Thanks for joining us in After the Flag, Episode 5. We'll see you in Italy.
Miller versus Marquez. Can Miller get him on the cutback, coming over the crest out of turn 4? Yes, he can. Down into La Chapelle. Miller on the inside. Look at this. Brilliant racing. Unbelievable stuff. Dovizioso versus Petrucci. Dovizioso sweeps straight back on through. Marquez makes it 300 for Honda here in Le Mans.